Hey everybody, Jake here, and today we're going to take a look at the Schneider Voice fountain pen. This is an entry-level fountain pen. It is a very unique looking fountain pen that I believe is more targeted towards a younger demographic, but we'll go ahead and take a look at it. Go over some size comparisons, like, neutral, dislike. We'll do a writing sample, and then I'll give my conclusion for this pen. So here's the Schneider Voice next to a kit pen that I have, a Lamy LX or All-Star Safari, they're all about the same size, and a Jinhao X750. You can see that capped, it is the longest out of all of these pens. Bam! Bet you weren't expecting that, were you? The lovely orange section here. Alright, so here it is next to the same pens while being uncapped. So you can see it's still the longest, and it does come out to be longer than the Lamy LX, which to me is a pretty decent sized fountain pen. So even though this is targeted, in my opinion, at a younger audience, it does seem to be very large. And you can see when posted, this pen is fairly close to the Lamy LX in size. They're both somewhat larger than the Jinhao X750 and this kit pen that I have here. And in celebration of Kingdom Hearts 3 officially coming out this year, still not on PC sadly, here it is next to a Sora keychain. This is about 2 Soras tall. Alright, on to what I like about the pen. The very first thing and the biggest thing for me is that this fits in perfectly and looks amazing with my Lisa Frank pen case, notebook, and folder. It really brings the set together. It's just an astounding fit with that. Next up, it's my favorite color combination. I love lime green and neon orange. They look amazing. Like, look at that. Who doesn't like that? It's beautiful. This pen it's just gorgeous. Oh gosh. Next thing, and the last thing that I like, is that it takes a standard international cartridge. It comes with a little spacer, so you can put a spare in there if you want to use cartridges. Or you can use a standard international cartridge converter instead of a cartridge. But it's nice that they have that compatibility. It does come with one cartridge and that one spacer. It does not come with a converter. Alright, some stuff I'm neutral about. First thing is the nib is just a little bit too feedbacky for me. It does write. It's okay, which is why it's here. But that's about as good as it's going to get for me. You can see the nib design here. There's no markings or anything like that, but they said this is a medium, and it writes like a medium, but not a very smooth one. You'll see the actual nib tip is a little interesting as well. It's not quite as rounded. It's a lot more narrow vertically than most of the rounded nibs. Next thing is the clip. It has decent ramp, decent spring, and it has decent retention for plastic. But it is a plastic clip, and you can and may break it off if you don't keep it in your Lisa Frank pen case. Alright, on to what I dislike about the pen. This is inevitably going to be the longest section. This pen is super plasticky, and not plasticky like, a platinum preppy or anything like that. This is crappy plastic. This pen is just junk. You can see it flexing there. I'm not really putting much force on it, but you could break this pen no problem. It just feels like garbage, to be honest. Even the plastic threads on the inside here, they feel just terrible. Just terrible. The design is awful. I don't know what they were going for here with the... I don't know. I don't really know who this is appealing to. If you like this pen, I'm not judging you at all. Let me know in the comments. Honestly, if you find this design appealing, because I'm just not getting it. I'm not sure what the demographic was, unless they're targeting blind people. I don't know too many pens that are targeted towards blind people, but you never know. The grip is this kind of rubber. It's not as bad as the rotating skin. It's not quite that squishy, quite that rubbery. It's a little bit more of a dense rubber, but it's definitely rubbery, and you can feel it, and I don't like it. It reminds me of like elementary school, grade school. I'm not liking that very much at all. Next thing, the branding is just terrible. So I can almost deal with this paisley sticker across the body of the pen, but right here they have Schneider made in Germany in black, just plastered right on there. They could have put it here or something and it would have fit in so much more, but of course they put it on like the busiest part of the pen. They just branded it right there. It also says Germany up here up top. You can kind of see that there. That's the only real branding on this pen, but they just picked the worst possible location for it. I would have rather than put it on the clip at that point. That just, it takes a terrible looking pen and makes it even worse. Next thing, the nib. I showed you this earlier, but it doesn't have any sizing marking on it. It just has these weird lines, which aren't awful looking, but it does kind of leave the bottom part of the nib here looking a little blank, a little bland. I really wish they would have put M or Schneider something there. I would have vastly preferred an M, but I'm not sure. But the only size I could find this pen in was a medium anyway, so they may not need the branding, but it'd be nice to have. Next thing is there's a seam on the grip section, which I complained about on the Platinum 3776 and possibly a few other pens, but with this one it's a little bit more of a standout because this has a Lamy Safari-like grip, which I'm fine with, but where your index finger is supposed to rest, there's a seam right down the middle of it, as you can see there. And it doesn't dig in or anything because it's rubber, but you can really feel it, or at least I can, and it drives me insane. I hate this pen because of that. It's so unpleasant to write with and to hold. It's just terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. The last thing I'm going to complain about on this pen is the price. Just think in your mind how much this pen could possibly cost when you can get a Jinhao for like $3. You can get a Platinum Parapy for $3. You can get a Pilot Varsity for probably cheaper. There's a lot of pens in that under $10 range that you can get. I would probably value this pen at about $1, honestly. The build quality is right there with like a big pen. It's just not, it's not good. But this pen is $8 to $9 in most places that I've seen it. That is a lot for a piece of junk when you are competing with very, very good pens coming out of a bunch of other companies. At that point, I would say just save up and get you a Metropolitan, or pick up a used Safari, or get 2 or 3 Jinhaos. That's just ridiculous. The price they're charging for this, it's like highway robbery for this build quality. Just a real quick comment here before we go into the writing sample. The grip on this almost matches the orange on a Rhodia notepad. So if you have that laying around and you're curious about the shade of orange this is, it's ever so slightly darker than that. Not sure why you would bother, but just in case. Alright, let me get focused here. Sorry about the shaking there. This is probably the scratchiest medium nib I've ever seen in my entire life. It's pretty bad. I actually don't know what ink is in here. I'm gonna guess it's Schneider blue. It's just kind of default, dark blue, blue black, whatever you want to call it, ink that came with it. The ink color isn't terrible. It's fairly consistent with very little shading. But the pen nib is just, I wouldn't go so far as to call it scratchy, but it's not great. I'm gonna do a quick reverse sliding line, normal line, and a line with some pressure. You can get some flex out of this, but I wouldn't really call it a flex pen. But you can see there's some line variation, and I don't know. I don't enjoy writing with this pen. I've used it very little compared to the other pens that I do for review, just because I thought I had a conclusion much more quickly than the others. Speaking of conclusions, my conclusion on this pen is to never, ever, ever get one. Pass this pen up. Don't buy it. I wouldn't even bother to try it out. I would ignore it altogether unless you just love this aesthetic, which again, I'm not judging you if you do. It's definitely not for me. Because apart from matching all of my beautiful Lisa Frank stuff, I don't really have a use for this pen. It doesn't write that well. The only real upside, in my opinion, is that it takes standard international cartridge and converter, which so does Jinhao at a cheaper price and better build quality, better materials, better writing experience. I looked at this pen and I wondered, I haven't heard of that before. I wonder why. Now I know why, because it's garbage. Yeah, I wouldn't pay really anything for this pen over $1, and I doubt it costs even that to manufacture it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Keep an eye out for some upcoming reviews and possibly footage from the Atlanta Pen Show. Thanks, guys. Bye.